right, so we're going to realize, because we obviously are saying there's something wrong with what Stephen Hawking says, okay? We wouldn't be here unless we judge that there's something wrong with what Stephen Hawking says, not just about the final conclusion, but even the details and the argument itself. And I'm, for a very serious reason, and for sort of a surprise even to myself, I'm calling this section in which I present Stephen Hawking's epistemology, I'm calling it Refried Kant, a my choice universe, okay? Immanuel Kant. So rather than being sort of the latest and the cutting edge, when you actually read what Stephen Hawking said in this text, he's going back, all right? And this is the same thing with Richard Dawkins. He's going back to the 1700s. And his whole theory is rooted, and his final rejection of God is rooted in the epistemologies of the 1700s. And what do we mean by, epistemology? It simply means their theory of knowledge. What is knowledge? Okay, so epistemology is the study of knowledge. From the Greek word episteme, certain knowledge. Okay, just a theory of knowledge. All right. We've seen, and I've spoken about Kant here, but we've seen that this whole view of knowledge that's going to be presented, that's just refried Kant. So if Kant goes down the tubes, what Hawking's saying has to go down the tubes also. We find it in what's called the first, we'll just call it, it's called the first critique, but we'll call it the critique of pure reason. All right? And that was written in 1781. So rather than being the latest, most cutting edge, he's really going back to a theory that was put out by Kant in 1781. And just to briefly summarize Kant's theory, which is the basis of both philosophical modernism and theological modernism. Okay. The theory is that man, meaning the human mind, cannot understand. Oh, you can't see that, can you? Cannot understand. In German, the Ding an sich. Okay. Ding an sich, which means the thing in itself. Okay? The thing in itself. All right, the res, the thing. Kant is going to say that whole realm of objective things is unknowable to the human mind. That whole realm that we thought of as the real world is unknown to the human mind. Cannot be known. It's in the perpetual dark, which cannot be penetrated by the human mind. Okay, and everything, according to Kant, is simply but we experience a world. Hello? We experience a world around us. What about that, Kant? And he's going to say, okay, yeah, I got to deal with that problem. Okay. I want to walk to the table and eat my little lunch, okay? I want to do that, so I got to explain how there's a seeming world out there. So what he's going to say is that there's just sort of raw materials, like just chunks of raw material. Well, just imagine it like big rocks or big sand, bags of, not bags, but just like sand, all right, just all over the place. And these big chunks of sensation are just sort of coming into the mind, all right, in their raw status, okay? You might think, well, how do you know that if you don't know that there's something actually out there and it's a specific thing? So these chunks of raw matter come into the human mind, and the human mind forms them into ideas. And in fact, the human mind forms nature. The nature that we experience is formed by the human mind. It's sort of jarring to think about, but we have to follow along so we can understand what's going on here. So the mind, when it comes in, it's just raw materials from the outer darkness. But the human mind forms the nature within the mind. In fact, nature only has form and reality within being thought by the human mind. If the human mind wasn't thinking nature, there would be no nature as we know it. You see? So the whole universe is anthropocentric. It's just man-centered. Because the mind creates that nature. Okay? Kant, as I've said before, but I'll say it again, Kant said in one of the prefaces, second preface to the Critique of Pure Reason, he said, no longer will the human mind be dragged along by the apron strings of nature. After my philosophy, of course. No longer will the human mind be dragged along by the apron strings of nature. In other words, the human mind following the patterns and the structure of nature. No. Now we know with my theory, my epistemology, now we know that nature follows the structure of the human mind. Okay? So the human mind is here. No, excuse me. No. We know that already. The human mind, nature is here. Not there. Here. Okay, but Kant, you're a fanatic with regard to Isaac Newton's science, okay? You just think that is science. Whatever Newton said, that is science, okay? How do you fit all his laws of nature into your theory? Well, okay, how are you going to do that? Kant says, well, the laws of nature apply to my thinking, okay? Newton's laws are in here, not out there. You see, we're going into some weird places, but this is where we're going. This is where they're taking us. The laws of nature apply here. Newton's laws apply in here, in my mental construction of nature. Okay, that's why Kant attacked the students and disciples of Newton and called them the metaphysicians in a very nasty way. The metaphysicians, okay? Why? Because they said that this world that Newton's physics described is actually an objective world out there, put into place by God, created by God, sustained by God, okay? It has an objective reality which Newton's laws explain. Okay? Well, Kant says, no, you're just the metaphysicians. And when he says that, that's a bad term, okay? Why? Because then those people are going to the extreme and saying that objective reality actually exists, okay, out there. All right? And we know, because of me, that reality is constructed by the mind. Kant says that the raw data comes in, the mind situates the data in space and time, but the categories, unlike Newton, Kant says the categories of space and time are not out there. They're not the divine sensoria. Rather, they're in the human mind, you see? So it's the human mind which situates things in space and time. Meaning it really if they're not in, when just think about it, if things are not in space and time out there, what are they like, right? They sort of take on three-dimensionality only in the human mind when the human mind perceives them. That's what Kant says. And then we're able to apply thought to that nature that has been constructed by the human mind. Okay, and also the imagination actually, for Kant, constructs the nature that we perceive. It's important. Underline that imagination. Okay, because... Okay. Okay. Remember the fishbowl, right? The fishbowl and the curved fishbowl, curved goldfish bowl. This is what Stephen Hawking says about our perceptions of reality. He says our perceptions, and hence the observations upon which our theories are based, are not direct, but rather, meaning they're just there in the what would you call it, straight goldfish bowl, or I've never had a goldfish. I don't know. A goldfish bowl without a curve. All right. So our theories are based are not direct, but rather are shaped. Our theories are shaped. Our observations are shaped by a kind of lens or lenses, which is the interpretive structure of our human brains. Okay? And tell me if this is not Refried Kant. This is him speaking. I just told you what Kant said, and now look at what Hawking says, how he's describing things. The raw data sent to the brain are like a badly pixelated picture with a hole in it. Fortunately, the human brain processes that data. Notice processing the data. Combining the input from both eyes, filling in gaps on the assumption that the visual properties of neighboring locations are similar. Moreover, it reads a two-dimensional array of data from the retina and creates, you got to look at every word here, creates from it the impression of a three-dimensional space. You see that? Creates from it the impression of a three-dimensional space. So, guess what? From an objective universe, which I could see, we've gone to a universe which is simply an impression, okay? Or it's described as an impression. The brain, in other words, builds a mental picture or model. Okay, and he's going to try to come down to our level, okay, and try to give an example. Here's his example. This shows that what one means, this shows, this description of knowledge that he just gave you, this Refried Kant, this shows that what one means when one says, I see a chair, I see a chair, where's nice chair? I see a chair, everyone look at a chair, is merely that one has used, one meaning you, your brain, or you, has used the light scattered by the chair. I thought we were sitting on raw data here. See, in other words, contradiction. I put down here, so there is a chair after all, right? Hawking, right? Or else, how can you say this? Be consistent. When one says, I see a chair, is merely that one has used the light scattered by the chair to build a mental image or model of the chair. If the model is up, it's a little joke by a physicist, all right, a physicist of black holes, here we go. If the model is upside down, with luck, one's brain will correct it before one tries to sit on the chair. Okay. Listen. Okay, it's a little joke. I mean, you gotta, some humanity there. But what does it mean to correct it? What does that mean? Correct it. If that's the way the mind situates it, well, see, he uses this realist epistemology, this realist view of knowing, to help you or to enable you to accept everything else he's doing, all right? And then he's going to throw away the realist idea of knowing and just you're left with what he says. He's using common sense as a tool to get you to think his way. Another problem that this Refried Kant view of knowledge solves is that another problem that this Refried, that's what I call it, the Refried Kant view of knowledge solves, or at least avoids, is the meaning of existence. The objective of existence of things falls along the wayside, but also the objective meaning of things the meaning of existence is going to fall by the waysides. The model, so what are we left with? We don't know existence really. We avoid the question of what existence means. So what are we left with? The model in which the table stays put is much simpler and agrees with observation. All right? Rather than, I thought he was talking about a chair, but now he's talking about a table. Rather than having the table upside down, he says the model I use, which has the table standing upright, okay, it's much simpler and agrees with observation. What? That is all one can ask. That's what he says. That is all one can ask, all right? That, you eat not on the floor, but sitting down, and it seems to work. That's as much as you can ask. Whether it actually is like that, you can't know that. You could just know, that you can eat, okay? But although physicists were accustomed to accepting particles, now he's getting to the physics, that were only inferred to exist from statistical blips in data pertaining to the scattering of other particles, the idea of assigning reality to a particle that might be in principle unobservable was too much for many physicists. Okay. Well, one of the things that Stephen Hawking is known for is pushing the idea of the Big Bang. Okay, he's into the Big Bang. And this is what these numbers mean, the Big Bang. He wants to assert the Big Bang. And that's one of his main points that everyone knows him for, talking about and asserting the Big Bang. Okay, Big Bang theory. Universe is from an explosion, goes out and is receding and from us. The Big Bang theory. He's known for that. Okay? Well, Stephen, is that reality? Did that really happen? Based on what you've just told us? It's what he says. The Big Bang theory is more useful than all other theories. Okay? The stagnant state theory, where the universe just is stagnant and doesn't expand. Still, so you have Big Bang, universe expanding from a single point, as opposed to the stagnant state theory, in which the universe is just there, okay? Stagnant, not expanding or contracting. This is what he says about that. And he's supposed to hold the Big Bang theory. He says this, still, neither model can be said to be more real than the other. Neither model can be said to be more real than the other. And remember, for scientific purposes and for the science of physics and cosmology, the Big Bang is what supposedly describes the beginning of the universe, right? It describes the beginning of the universe. So the beginning and as it unfolds. That's what you're saying, right? The Big Bang describes the beginning, right? Right? Yes. But guess what? We got to hold at the same time, not S. Okay? Look what he says. Page 58 or 50 and 59. The universe does not just have a single existence or history. So why are you pushing this on us? But rather, every possible version of the universe exists simultaneously in what is called a quantum superposition. So every possible form of the universe exists simultaneously. So this is why you're rejecting Newton and all the classical physics and the fact that there's a single objective world based on quantum physics, okay? So much to talk about. Okay. The Newtonian theory was found to be inadequate for the description of nature on the atomic or subatomic level. Classical theories, such as Newton's, are built upon a framework reflecting everyday experience, in which material objects have an individual existence, can be located at definite locations, follow definite paths, and so on. The common sense view of reality. Quantum physics provides a framework for understanding. Quantum physics provides a framework for understanding how nature operates on atomic and subatomic scales. So this is really the way it is, right? The way quantum mechanics portrays it. It dictates a completely different conceptual scheme in which an object's position, path, and even its past and future are not precisely determined. So he's saying this about all reality. He's saying quantum mechanics, which he's upholding as the great. Basically, he's saying quantum mechanics was discovered in 1920, and he's saying the only way to understand the world is through quantum mechanics. So nobody really understood the world till 1920. That's what he's saying. But he's saying this, he's saying, according to this conceptual scheme, an object's position, path, and even its past and future are not precisely determined. What happened to our machine universe? What happened to our absolute determination? What happened to absolute necessity that doesn't allow for freedom, that doesn't allow for God's intervention or miracles? According to quantum physics, no matter how much information we obtain or how powerful our computing abilities, the outcomes of physical processes cannot be predicted with certainty. Again, this is why I capitalized this next line. Because they are not determined with certainty. In other words, nature does not dictate the outcome of any process or experiment even in the simplest situations. So, what's that page? 107? No, it's 69. So, all the other pages, all these pages leading up to a determined universe that can't have God, or you can't have laws, out the window. He's directly contradicting himself. None of these no physical process, none of the outcomes can be predicted with certainty because they are not determined with certainty. In other words, nature does not dictate the outcome of any process or experiment, even in the simplest situations. He says all the probabilities that are discovered in quantum theory, he says all these theories, which he's going to uphold, cleave to, and use against all traditional knowledge, he's going to say these theories reflect a fundamental randomness in nature. Randomness? I thought everything was predetermined. Okay. Can I just talk about these numbers on the board, because I don't want to write them again. Actually, because he's also saying, Einstein's theory, Einstein calculated the speed of light and said that nothing can go faster than the speed of light. Well, Stephen Hawking admits that for the Big Bang to happen as we expected that it happened, it would violate the Einstein's determination of the speed of light. Okay, so if you accept Einstein, you have to reject the Big Bang, I guess, right? Just for illustration's sake. So this is the size that the Big Bang theorists say all of matter was condensed into this size of a coin, this size, okay? In order for the Big Bang to be what it was, in order to explain the universe, the matter this size would have to expand by this amount, one with 30 zeros after it, okay, in point seconds. He says, it was as if a coin, a centimeter in diameter, suddenly blew up to 10 million times the width of the Milky Way. That may seem to violate general relativity, which dictates that nothing can move faster than light. Okay? But that speed limit does not apply to the expansion of space itself. Well, how can you have space without matter? So, general relativity, which he's holding to, denies the Big Bang. And he's saying the universe is characterized by fundamental randomness without any necessity. And it can be calculated merely with mathematical probabilities. Okay? And here's the critical thing. We have the emergence of math. And the final step, the final weapon that Hawking is going to use against our acknowledgement of God as creator and the wonderfulness of creation is math. The probabilities that can be produced by math. Okay? So that's next. Okay.